Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. This is the Dark Pixel Podcast, and my name is Mike.
My name's Kason.
We are going to be talking about the Nintendo 64 Classic. It allegedly has leaked.
Well,
There have been some photos posted.
yeah,
And,
but
You never know with like leaked photos, right? You just never freaking know.
it looks like an N64 just with USB. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know. It
pretty
doesn't.
much.
Anyone could have kind of made that.
Let me pull up.
Yes.
Kason, I think we're losing you already. Okay, you're back now.
What?
Um,
Sorry about that.
okay. So I'm gonna cut over to the photos. Bada bing. There they are. N64. Thoughts looks pretty legit, this guy says.
So it actually has 4 controller inputs, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, if it's gonna come with 4 of those freaking like huge
I
controllers,
doubt it. You
that's
got to buy those
crazy.
separately.
I would think you'd have to buy them separately. But here,
Yeah.
what it looks like is that it has the controller ports for the original N64 controller. So you could actually use your own controllers on this. So that's a plus. But then that
Really?
the part on the face kind of
Yeah.
slides out, and then the I guess the inputs that they've been using on like it looks
Huh.
like similar to the NES Classic and SNES Classic are behind that. So it's like you
So
could
that's
use your
huh?
own controllers or you can use the one it came with. Kind of an interesting idea if real. Big if on
Yeah,
that.
well, if it's real, I don't know. We'll see. But all of my N64 controllers are completely broken. So none
Yeah,
of them work
mine
anymore. All the joysticks are like flat.
those joysticks did not last long. They kind of
No.
they would get real loose and then like yeah, the 64's joysticks were not the best. I'll put it that way. But here are the
By the way,
images.
I'm not seeing chat at the moment.
Well, I made it public, so
Okay.
I don't know what's up
Just
with that.
just mentioning it.
Take a look again. The live stream is public.
Okay. Do you see any chat?
I don't. I'm not sure
Ooh,
why.
people. Where are you people?
No one
You're
decided to
streaming.
join
Where are
us
the
on our
people?
podcast today.
No. Something's wrong. Hopefully it'll get
Let
fixed.
me take a look at the watch page again. I have made
Oh,
it
someone's
public.
here. Okay,
It
it probably
says,
just took a while to push out to
oh,
people.
there's Dude McGuy. He says hello. It says
What's
25
up?
people are watching, so
Okay,
people are
cool. We're
definitely
good.
here. Maybe it
We're
just took
good.
maybe it took a few minutes. I have heard that there's a weird
That
thing this
happens.
week
Oh,
where when you
really?
post a video, it'll stay private for like a certain number of minutes after you've made it public.
Mm.
So maybe it has something to do with that.
YouTube debates whether or not to delete your channel. They're like,
Should we allow this? Yeah,
I'll let them
exactly.
pass. Yeah.
Okay, I see the comments coming in now, so we're all set.
Okay, cool.
Anyways, so we're talking about the N64 Classic. We showed off some of those photos where the face of it has like the inputs from the original N64 controllers, but you can kind of pull the
Yeah.
face of it off, and it has a secondary input for what would obviously be the inputs they're using on the controllers that'll come bundled with it. Probably one, but maybe two. I don't know. The PlayStation Classic is using two. The SNES Classic came
Ooh.
bundled with two. Two would be a good idea.
At
Those
least
controllers are
two.
big, though. They're really
They're
big. So
huge. They're clunky. I wonder if they're
they,
going to have a. No, they'd have to have the original. If it's going to be a classic, it's got to be the original.
oh, totally, yeah. So, anyways, now we get to talk about which games we feel will be on it. For those of you who remember, I went through an extensive process of what I think the best method would be for including the PlayStation 1 classic games. Did I go
Yeah.
through that process today? No, I did not.
Good.
Today I'm going on gut feelings. But
Yeah.
if anyone would like to go back and watch our podcast on which game should be included on the PlayStation Classic and want to use that methodology I came up with and amend it if you feel that you have better ways of whatever, like getting more accurate. Like one thing some people noticed or recommended was, oh, you should also have listed, is this a Sony owned, IP? That would make it an easier buy.
Yeah, we
and
didn't
say
think of that until after. Yeah.
So there are some things you could do to make it an even better process, but I'm
Which
not
is
doing
part of
that
why
today.
Wild Arms is going to be on the PS1
Exactly,
Classic.
because that's a PlayStation 1 game or a Sony game.
It didn't pass like any of the criteria.
However, let's talk about N64 games. So
yeah,
people, especially big RPG fans who were obviously on the PlayStation 1, because that's where all the RPGs were during that time, will argue that the N64 didn't have a very extensive library. Now, while it is nowhere, I mean, just nowhere close to comparable to the PlayStation 1. I mean, no one's going to argue that. I think there are a lot more than people think.
I think so too. And it's like, you don't compare the mass library of one to the other.
Yeah.
Just compare the top 20 games of one to the top 20 games of the other. And you'll actually see a pretty comparable system.
Yeah. If you do that, I think that the very best of the N64 are easily comparable with the very best of the PlayStation
Easily,
1.
Yeah.
And I actually think that probably like the top 5 games on the N64 quite possibly make it into my top 10 of all-time favorite games. I grew up with an NES while all my friends had SNESs. I never got an SNES. So all my friends had Super Nintendos and I had a Nintendo. So I was playing Nintendo games when everyone else had Super Nintendo. I had to go to my friend's house to play freaking NBA Jam and Mario Kart and Chrono Trigger and stuff like that. Super Mario World. But I never had those games. And my parents, they kind of didn't like that we spent a lot of time on our NES, so they didn't let us get another gaming console until the Nintendo 64. And the Nintendo 64 is where like I really, really started to get into gaming big time. Mostly due to Ocarina of Time, but there were a lot of just genuinely amazing games on there. A lot more than people realize. So I'm actually going to throw out a list of like 45 to 50 games that they could pick. And I don't think they have any incentive to go higher than 20 now that Sony has said they're going to put 20 games onto the PlayStation 1. It's like, oh, like a precedent's been set and they can sort of just do that. But if they were to go to 25 or something, but you could take away almost any of these that are like, oh, the licensing's too difficult on that. But you could still easily come up with a great list of 20 from this list of 45 or 50 I'm going to read off. Okay, obviously, Zelda's Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are going to be on it. Super Mario 64, going to be on it. Star Fox 64. I fetching love that game. Of course it's going to be on it.
It's going to be there.
Super Smash Brothers, going to be on it. Let's see here. Mario. They're probably going to get a Mario Party or two. Which one was
Mario
the one
Party?
That had Bomb Skitball as a mini game?
One and two. Bomb Skitball was one. Bomb Skitball was the first one.
Okay, so as long as they have Mario Party 1, then I'll be happy because I loved Bomb Skitball. It's my favorite.
Mario Party 2 is a better overall game, I think.
Probably.
It's like the Western theme where Mario has like a Western,
hat.
Yeah. But Mario Party 1 had a couple mini games like Bomb Skitball that were way fun.
They could include all 3 of the Mario Party games on the N64 if they wanted to, right?
They could.
Here are some others that are like first party, pretty much, that they could put on there. Sin and Punishment, a lesser known sort of like rail shooter, really really cool game. Excite Bike 64. Parker played that a ton. I freaking loved that game.
That game was fun. I played it a lot too. It was hard.
Super awesome game. Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Stadium would be freaking great. Paper Mario.
Oh yes, please.
Donkey Kong 64. I had that one. That one was pretty fun.
Yeah, that game's fun.
Let's see. Kirby 64. Mario Kart 64 is like a freaking, of course, that has to go on there.
Yeah, that's gonna be there.
Dr. Mario 64 could make it on there as well. and maybe there's a couple of other first party IPs I'm missing, but those are all like shoe-ins. Those are all like should definitely.
Yeah.
There are others that I'm not actually sure about, like Wave Race or Pilot Wings. I don't think those are
Yeah.
Nintendo first party
I've heard
exclusives.
Wave Race. I don't think it is, but those were some of the early games that a lot of people played when the N64 kind of first
Yeah.
was coming out.
Yeah. Okay, so here are some others that could be difficult licensing things, but that were absolute classic N64 games and should go on there for sure. Banjo Kazooie and Banjo
Oh
Tooie.
yes, please.
And
Please.
running in that line with it being a rareware, right?
Yeah.
GoldenEye and Perfect Dark,
GoldenEye.
Diddy
I've heard
Kong
that.
Racing.
Yeah, GoldenEye might be hard. Diddy Kong
GoldenEye,
Racing, yes.
Diddy, sorry, GoldenEye is like compounded by the fact that not only was it made by Rare, but you might have to
Yeah.
get the license from what's the movie studio?
Is it
Is
MGM?
it MGM?
James Bond, I think it's MGM.
Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
like two layers to that can make that really hard. But I mean, it's
Yeah.
worth it. GoldenEye was just a freaking phenomenon at the time, you know?
Yeah. I think when people think of the N64, GoldenEye is one of the first games that they'll think of. That game was
Yeah.
so big.
Okay, so then we've got Conker's Bad Fur Day is another one. That was,
That's not going to be on it.
it's probably not going to be on there, but that's another
No,
rare
it's
game.
definitely not going to be on there. There's no way.
Let's see. I think that covers all of the rare games that are
because
not first party.
DK64 was not rare.
It might have been, but that's still Nintendo
But it's
owned.
Donkey
So,
Kong, right? Yeah.
So that wouldn't be a problem. Okay, here's another one though. Rogue Squadron. Rogue Squadron needs to be on this thing, but Factor 5. So I was reading into this.
It was rare. DK64 was rare.
Yeah, made by Rare, but still Nintendo IP.
Yeah,
okay, so Factor 5 made the Rogue Squadron games, right? And I was reading a little bit about their history because they had closed down, but apparently they had started as like a foreign game developer in like Germany, but in order to have a stronger relationship with North American partners like LucasArts, they had a United States branch that was opened to work with them on games like Rogue Squadron and stuff like that. And so that is the company that closed, was the North American branch, but the Germany branch kind of stayed around for a little bit longer. Then eventually it liquefied and the game licenses were transferred to certain people who were a part of that German branch of it, right? But then they recently reopened in March of 2017.
Yeah.
So I think that those rights can still be, those licenses could still be acquired by Nintendo from a currently still up and running company. So Rogue Squadron, I would really freaking hope.
That would be awesome. But with the new Star Wars licensing stuff, since Disney owns it now,
that's actually a good point.
I really don't know if, I don't know. I'm skeptical on Rogue Squadron, but that would be so cool.
That's actually a good point, because I wonder if just because it fits under Star Wars, if that license, who that license belongs to. That's a very good question, actually. I don't know legally how that would work out.
See, because George Lucas was a little, open. He was liberal with his allowing people to make Star Wars content, and Disney is not. So
yeah, that's actually
a whole different thing.
Little more complicated than I figured. Okay, 1080 snowboarding.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome game.
Oh,
should definitely be on there. In the same
vein, that is the game that ruined our controller, though. Like doing 1080 and
trying to do 1080s on that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that just was so. It just wrecked our joysticks.
I think the N64 had a lot of like the extreme sports / racing sort of genre covered really well with games like 1080, Excite Bike, Wave Race, Pilot Wings, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Oh yeah, Tony.
Those are 5 really excellent games right there that could be up for consideration. That'd be really great.
Yeah.
I put Star Wars
Mario
Pod
Tennis.
Racer.
The original Mario Tennis.
Oh yes,
Actually,
absolutely. Mario
the original
Tennis.
I think was on Virtual Boy, but the original that people actually played. I think was the N64 one.
And Mario Golf alongside that one too.
Oh yeah, Mario Golf. That game was super fun.
Star Wars Pod Racer falls into a similar kind of problem as Rogue Squadron probably, but it was very good.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fast.
I missed F-Zero X as a Nintendo IP. That could obviously be a shoe-in.
The last F-Zero.
Another one I forgot about from Rare is Jet Force Gemini.
You're right.
Definitely big one.
That's a consideration for sure.
Shadows of the Empire.
A lot of people didn't
similar
like that
problem.
Game.
Didn't like which one?
Jet Force Gemini.
I have heard people who say they didn't like it. I thought it was sweet.
I did too. It was one of my favorite games on the system. And the multiplayer was actually really fun too. But yeah, a lot of people somehow they just really weren't into it.
Shadows of the Empire again, similar. Okay, I also think it's not that good of a game. While I liked it a lot,
not.
I liked it, and I would love to see it on there just for nostalgic purposes. I don't think it's actually good. And it's also going to fall under problematic licensing, so you probably won't see it, but it'd be sweet.
It would just be fun to play again and see if that code still works, the ultimate code thing.
Yeah, dude, totally.
I wonder if they would have changed that for this new version.
Okay, let's see. Bomberman 64, I think I mentioned that one. I would love to see NFL Blitz or something of its ilk on there.
Or Quarterback Club 98.
Yeah, that'd be freaking sweet.
I don't think we'd see
similar problem with NFL licenses where that all falls to EA
now. The N64, yeah, exactly. It used to be that you had all these different football games, and gosh, it was around like the end of the 64's life that Madden bought like all the rights, and no one else can make those games anymore. So yeah, that would be a problem.
Let's see. Then we got like Turok and Duke Nukem. I don't think those will get on there.
No,
but they were well-liked games. Got Rayman 2. Nintendo has a good relationship with Ubisoft right now, so that's a big possibility. Resident Evil 2. Who knows? But then I was looking at some other lists here, and I was actually like really freaking surprised. Oh, let's see if I can find it. Well, where'd I put it? There are some games I'd never heard of that are considered to be... Did I mention Harvest Moon 64, first of all? That's like one of the best games ever.
I don't think you did, and that's a shame.
Okay, listen. I was on that list, but I was jumping all over the place. Harvest Moon 64 is in my top 10.
It should be on there. Yeah.
Absolutely be on there.
Yeah.
I actually go back and forth on whether or not that's my favorite N64 game of all time.
Oh, jeez. It's so good. We spent so much time playing it.
I love it. Okay, but there's a game here called Rocket Robot on Wheels. I've never heard of that before.
It's a shoe-in.
Apparently, that's one of the best games on the N64.
Also, about Battle Tanks with an X. Remember Battle Tanks?
Battle Tanks was sick.
That was a sick game.
Battle Tanks was sweet. That should totally be on there.
The multiplayer. We never actually played the campaign of that.
Battle Tanks
was
amazing.
A fun game, man.
Here's another one. Space Station Silicon Valley. I never freaking heard of that. That's like on a list of top 25 best N64 games ever.
What the heck?
Another one called Blast Corps. Or Blast Corps. Blast Corps? No idea what that is. I did play NHL 99. That game was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, me too, yeah.
That game was a lot of fun. Didn't you guys have
a 3-on-3 hockey game back then, too, but I can't remember what it would be called.
I think that was NHL 99.
Was that it? Because that's the best one. Where it's 3-on-3 and you're just like chucking each other.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it.
You're just like...
Yeah, you're just checking people like all the time.
All the time. And just stealing the puck over and over and over. It's basically what became Mario Strikers.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like that same setup.
Same idea, yeah. You guys had All-Star Baseball 2001, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that game was sweet.
That game was super fun.
Let's see, what else did this guy put on his? Madden 99, get out of here. Ridge Racer 64. Never played that one.
What the heck?
Never played WWF WrestleMania 2000, but apparently that's really good.
I think that may have been one of the more popular games, though, on the system.
Rayman 2, I mentioned that one.
Worms Armageddon.
Oh, Worms was awesome, yeah.
Worms was. I
Totally.
played that on the PC. I never played it on the 64. I did play StarCraft 64 though.
Oh, that's
That would be
one.
pretty cool.
I go back and forth on that because it was obviously so much better on PC, right?
I know it was
and
not
and
meant
the
to be played on the
the
64.
same could be said for something like Turok or any shooter,
Yes.
basically. But
Yeah, except GoldenEye.
GoldenEye was just such like a cultural phenomenon. I just don't see how you
Yeah.
don't get it on there somehow. But anyways, I think that we've put together a really solid list now of about 50 games that could possibly go on there. And to cut 30 of those out due to licensing problems, you should still have like a solid list of 20 you can play with. So
Yeah,
I
that's a
think,
lot more than I thought. I thought it was going to
yeah,
be tough to come up with 20.
yeah.
But I mean,
I
aside from a few on there, which are like weird, like Blast Corp, uh, most of those games are games that I played and that are really fun. So it's a
so
better
yeah,
system than people think.
it had a lot more games, I think. A lot more like really solid games than people
Yeah.
realize. And so I think that an N64 classic would be pretty stellar, almost no matter
Yeah.
which of those 50 that they choose to actually put on there.
It
Um,
would be a hit.
hopefully they can get more like 25 rather than the 20, but we'll see what happens. Like I said, because I think the PlayStation 1, which has way more to choose from, is only going with 20. I think Nintendo has the ability now to go like, oh, we don't have any reason to go higher than 20 if they're only going to pick
Yeah.
20. So
Unless their chipset is already like decided, like they only
yeah,
have a 1 gigabyte and they have to,
that's
whatever
true.
fits on that. And they've already been manufacturing them at Foxconn in China because we're only 2 months away from when it's going to be sold, or a month and a half. So I don't know how many changes they could make now, but that would be an opportunity since Sony's already kind of showed their hand.
We got Idris's piece is saying would be hilarious if they forced you to buy a separate expansion pack to play some of the games that require
Yes, that would be great. Like Donkey Kong 64 or the
it.
that would be so funny.
Didn't Majora's Mask require the expansion
Yeah,
pack?
Majora's Mask required it.
And I think
Donkey Kong.
I think you could play Rogue Squadron without it, but they increased the draw distance a
Yeah, you
lot
could see further.
if you had the expansion pack, which made
Yeah,
it
you
like
still couldn't see that
playable.
far though. It was pretty hard.
Yeah. Um.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyways, a lot of games there to choose from.
Yep.
Like I said, the N64 for me is probably my favorite video game console of all time.
Mm,
If only strictly talking about like the fact that it sort of like really opened my eyes to how amazing games could be. Like when I played Ocarina of Time, I was just like, what the this is crazy. Like a whole nother world you can escape to with cultures and like huge maps to explore, and just like the fantasy element of it really drew me in,
mm,
and just opened my eyes in a way that kind of changed my life up, and sort of like opened a whole realm of different like stories to me that I wouldn't have been able to, well, that I wouldn't have known about otherwise. So the N64 is a huge, huge, huge special place in my heart, and I would be stoked to get an N64 Classic. It might be the first of all of these I actually buy personally, but
mm.
we'll see. Depends how much it costs, honestly. But
Yeah, and here's the funny thing. I know the PlayStation is doing steady decline from the NES to the SNES, even to the PlayStation of games. Like the NES Classic had like 30, the SNES had 22 or something, and the PS1's gonna have 20. I think Nintendo might be okay with even only putting like 16 games on or something,
that would
because
suck.
in their opinion, the quality of games is higher. Therefore, what you're getting is still equivalent, even though there's a lower number. I don't know that they'd go up to like 25 or something. I think they just see it as a downward. So we get the GameCube Classic. It's going to have like 12 games.
Yeah, and the more they go with this, like the greater a limitation memory or space would be,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because the games get a lot bigger after this,
Mhm.
moving into like the PlayStation
Like
2 and
10
GameCube.
times bigger. Yeah.
Dude
Yeah.
McGuy mentioned Ogre Battle 64. I don't know if I mentioned that it was on my list here. If I read it or not,
Oh,
I don't remember. But yes, Ogre Battle 64, freaking amazing. I love
yeah.
that game.
It's too
Okay.
good.
Anyways, who knows if this leak is real or not? I mean,
Yeah,
we all know it's
it's
coming eventually.
happening. The classic is coming. It just may not look like this.
It may or may not be this. These photos may or may not be real, but an N64
Yeah.
classic will eventually come. So,
Oh yeah.
what games would you like to see on the Nintendo 64 Classic? Let me know. Some of you are already letting us know, but let us know in the comments too of the ones that we
Yeah.
did not mention. What are um, some other games that went under the radar I never heard of before? Do
I
not.
do see one here I don't think you mentioned, and it was Kirby.
I
Kirby
think I think
64.
I did say Kirby, but
Did
said
you
it very
mention that?
briefly. Very briefly. I
Hmm.
actually never played that.
It's pretty
Um,
fun.
do not say Load Runner 64. That should not be on it.
Nice. No, no, thank you.
And also, do not say Yoshi's Story. I know some people like Yoshi's Story, but I hate
Yeah.
that game. I really hate that game. And the fact that it
Uh,
is first party IP means that it's actually a pretty high candidate to make it on there.
it's probably going to be
But
on there.
if they freaking put Yoshi's Story on it, but they don't put something like Rogue Squadron, I'm going to be kind of pissed.
Mm.
Anyways,
Everyone
my
is saying Quest 64, so good job. Good job, people
everybody.
in the comment section. You're
All
on
right.
point.
So let's move over to the main topic of today's discussion. I don't know if you saw this, Kason. I'll give you a link to it.
I saw images from it, but I didn't actually. I don't know what they talked about. I
So
just saw
there was
images of people being like, the dream team, they're back together. And I was like, oh, cool.
it was really interesting because so we're going to jump into this interview that was conducted where Yoshinori Kitase, Hironobu Sakaguchi, and Nobuo Uematsu were all together at the same time. And they actually asked him at the beginning, when was the last time the three of you were all together in the same place? And they had a hard time really like nailing down when it was. It was more than 10 years since all three of them had actually been together.
What? Holy cow.
They
They
meet
must not be very close.
they meet individually a lot. Like Kitase and
Ah,
Sakaguchi and
oh, sure.
Uematsu and Sakaguchi meet
Yeah.
together quite often, but the three of them actually being in the same place doesn't happen very often. So
What? Huh.
let me cut to the display here. So this is the interview on Edamame Arcade channel. It's a really good interview, about 19 minutes long, and it's mostly centered on Final Fantasy VII. So they talk about the process behind creating the music. There's a really good section in here where they talk about load times, how they were really concerned about load times in the game and how hard they worked to reduce the load times. A lot of really good like behind the scenes development history information in this interview. However, so to just that being said, go watch this if you haven't seen it yet because it's really good information. But the real topic of the day for me is what was censored from what Nobuo
Yeah.
Uematsu says here at the beginning. So the
I
question that
heard
was
about that.
asked was, why did you choose Final Fantasy VII music exclusively for this year's Bra Bra concert series? Why are you focusing only on Final Fantasy VII music? And his response was this. And you can see everyone freaks out. Yeah, Sakaguchi is like putting an X up with his arms or something like, no, you can't say that. Anyways, they there's more to that as you go into the video, like the actual video, and they laugh about it for a long time. But what ends up happening is that let me close a couple of these tabs. Is that Kitase says something like, "You said that at in an interview at one of the past concert events, and you almost broke the internet with that. Like we can't say that." And so they said, "Let's just say that it's because we're Square's making the Final Fantasy VII remake right now." Now, I think that we talked about this a little bit when we in the podcast where we said that Uematsu was going to be doing the Final Fantasy VII remake. But what he said, and I have some sources here, some Japanese sources for people who were at the event and heard what he said. And what he
Yes, because they're
said,
saying, what was it?
what he said was that the game was supposed to come out this year. Final Fantasy VII Remake was supposed to come out in 2018.
Oh,
But now a
oh,
lot of things have changed with them bringing the development in house, and that has changed. That plan has changed. I am almost 100% certain what he said right
that's
there.
about right.
I'm almost certain that what he said right there was that the reason they chose to do Final Fantasy VII for this year's concert series is because the remake was meant to release in 2018. And that's the part they were like, no, don't, you can't talk about it. Don't say that. People are going to freak out. Now, I haven't put the sources that I'm looking at, like the people, like the Japanese sources, in the description yet. I will once the video's up after the live stream's over. I'll put these Japanese sources in the description so you guys can look at them for any of you who read Japanese and can double check it. But that is apparently what he said in that concert interview, and they say directly in this interview that it was that you had said this at one of your concerts last year, and that it was kind of a dicey situation to have said something that big, and that a lot of at least it went viral in Japan. At least Kitase
Yeah, how come I didn't hear about it?
suggests that, but it wasn't covered very much at all in the West.
No, no.
So, Final Fantasy VII, according to Uematsu, at least it seems to me, was supposed to come out this year. The Final Fantasy VII remake was supposed to come out this year. So what does that mean about how much of it has changed from Cyber Connect 2's version? What does that mean about maybe just the fact that they decided that they're just going to focus on Kingdom Hearts 3 and getting that done first, and so it's a delay more for like I don't know, like ease of scheduling or spreading out your big releases in such a way that makes sense business wise. I'm not sure, but if that was the plan to have Cyber Connect 2's version of the game release in 2018, then we haven't heard anything really about it. Haven't seen any video at all since it went in house. Who knows? Who knows what's changed or how much of the direction has changed or
because we haven't really seen it since basically 2015, right?
No. And it was back.
They had like 2 screenshots, but that's it.
And it was back in 2015 where they talked about things like releasing it in an episodic structure, so like a 3-part thing, and all that kind of stuff. And is any of that?
I wonder if that's changed.
Yeah, who knows if any of that's true anymore?
Well, that's interesting.
Who knows if anything that was actually said in interviews about FF7 Remake back when they first announced it is even true anymore, considering how much time has gone by, considering the fact that the game was supposed to release this year but did not, and that they've been just completely quiet about it. They've kept it totally under wraps.
Oh, I'm sure it's so different now.
Who knows what to expect, man?
It's going to be a musical. I'm calling it. It's going to be a musical. Nobuo finally, that was his compromise. He's like, fine, take me off Final Fantasy 15. But Final Fantasy 7 Remake is a musical. And they're like, okay.
Let's see. I saw a quote, or I saw something here in the chat saying, it's moving a little fast. This might be a stretch. This is from Furion Salamand. This might be a stretch, but do you think it'd have a competition against Smash Ultimate being out this year as well? I don't know.
Wouldn't
probably
say that's
not.
Why. It would have more competition against Kingdom Hearts 3, honestly.
Yeah. I would think the release of Kingdom Hearts 3 being closer to its release would be a problem more than a Smash Brothers release. If anything, I think Smash Brothers, just in general, as a series, promotes people to go check out other games that the characters come from. So if anything, releasing close to Smash Brothers, people would pick up Smash Brothers and go, oh, this Cloud character, he's cool. Oh, there's a Final Fantasy game with him in it. I'll go check that out too. So I think it would probably help it more than anything else.
I think so.
In any case, I find it really interesting. I think that this interview coming out this week with Uematsu kind of just like not giving an F what comes out of his mouth sometimes.
He's getting
right?
old. He's like taking a break from work. He's like, I don't care. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to me? He
It
doesn't
has,
care.
has interesting implications on like the current status of the FF7 remake, what was planned for it versus what could be going on behind the scenes. But I'm
Yeah.
more eager than ever for the re-reveal of the Final Fantasy VII remake, right? I'm
Maybe next
guessing
year.
which I'm guessing will come shortly after Kingdom Hearts 3 is released, whether that's at
Yeah.
E3 or sometime before
It'll
E3
probably be
maybe.
next year. Yeah.
Um,
Because they
was
don't
King
have. Well, what's their next big release after Kingdom Hearts 3?
I'm not sure other than maybe
Final Fantasy 16.
Final Fantasy 15 DLC kind of stuff, but that's not
Oh, sure.
really in the
That'll be a
same
big deal.
category.
Because they are doing
But
more of that, huh? That's
but
true.
yeah, the schedule in terms of like a new game release kind of wide open after Kingdom Hearts 3, and I would
Yeah.
assume Final Fantasy 7 remake's going to be that.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but I don't know. It's kind of like left me in this state where there's a lot of negativity about they've decided to make it an action game. They've done this, they've done that. I'm not happy about it or whatever, but since bringing it in house, it seems to me like there's been a lot of adjustments that are being made to it, and the fact that it's been so quiet, they haven't really revealed anything, leads me to believe that there's a lot going on there on the development side, on the sort of like the decisions being made on what the overall vision's going to be, since they weren't happy with CyberConnect 2's vision, that will lead to a new reveal of the game that will maybe show us something quite different than what we had seen before. So I'm kind of excited now to see whatever that's going to be. So, anyways, Kaysen will, I think, rejoin us here in a minute. His connection pieced out once again. There he is. He's back. Welcome back.
Hey.
So before we move on to the next topic, though, Exorcist says, I want Sakaguchi back to Square. Here's something really interesting, too. Did you guys know? I was not aware of this. Did you guys know that there was a Terra Battle cross Final Fantasy 15 little like DLC?
Really?
Where like the main character of Terra Battle, the girl, I forget her name, but she and Noctis team up together for a little adventure where they fight. And like Sakaguchi's little Hiso alien makes an appearance in it. And there's like dialogue between them and everything. There's like a little short story where Noctis and the Terra Battle lead female protagonist like join up and fight together. I had no idea that happened, but Sakaguchi and Uematsu were involved in that. So Mistwalker and Square collaborated on that little episode of that little DLC for Final Fantasy 15. And maybe, perhaps, that led to some kind of, because we know Uematsu was working on the soundtrack for Final Fantasy VII Remake. So maybe Sakaguchi could have been involved in, even if it's just consulting or something else. Like, obviously, there's kind of an open relationship there. They have worked together on something recently, and maybe he has seen what they're working on. Maybe he has had at least some room, because he has a good relationship with Kitase, who's producing the game, to kind of step in and give some advice or some feedback or whatever. So maybe he, if not in an official role, will be involved in some way into the creative process behind what's going on there.
That would be pretty cool. I hope so. Not to say that the only reason Final Fantasies were good was because of Sakaguchi. Obviously, he had his own negative tendencies as well. But just him being there, I think it's so clear. It's such a clear message from fans of Final Fantasy has been sent to Square Enix for a long time now. Like, we want him back. It was way better when he was in charge. That I wouldn't put it past. And they seemed friendly, as they were talking. And I don't know what his beef is with the upper, like the high management, the executives at Square, but with the other creatives he worked with, it seems like they're, I'm sure he'd love to come back and work with them again. So it just it's a matter if he has time or not, or if he cares to do it. But he's kind of been making an effort ever since Sakaguchi was at that Kingdom Hearts 15 like
Final
not
Fantasy 15.
reveal, but that thing.
Yeah.
That was the first time that he was like showed with them, right? And that was a couple years ago. But ever
Came to give
since then,
his
he's actually
endorsement.
made more and more appearances. It's almost like, yeah, Square Enix actually is. I thought it was just an honorary thing, like, oh, here's Sakaguchi, and he's like, yeah, 15's great. But I think they actually are gonna start using him a little bit more here, as much as they can.
Yeah, and
So
as much as he's open to
I think
working
it's
with them.
great.
And the
Yeah,
Terra Battle Cross FF15 thing is the first
that's a
like
big
true
deal.
collaboration between them, right?
Yeah,
So
that's a big deal.
who knows?
And
Who
who knows?
knows?
Maybe that was the terms of the collaboration. Was like, hey, we'll, if well, actually, that wouldn't work. Never mind. Like, I'll help you with Final Fantasy 7 if you do a crossover with my game in Final Fantasy 15. Okay, Sakaguchi.
The Man Cave says bring back Tetsuya Takahashi. That would be great, but he's with Nintendo now, man.
He's the one that's missing, and yeah,
He's with Nintendo now.
yeah.
He's got his place secured over there, so I don't think he's coming back.
No.
Doom the Guy says Kitase is now in a higher role with the company, so it might be him that has a hand in bringing Uematsu and Sakaguchi. That's
Ooh,
probably a very good
well,
point.
yeah.
He's kind of in charge, I think, of the Final Fantasy brand now. He's sort of like the executive
Really
producer of the whole Final Fantasy series. So, and
good for him.
Sakaguchi was like his father, basically, like took him under his wing
Yeah.
and brought him in. So, makes sense to
Yeah.
me, right? Anyways, interesting stuff. Let's move
Yep.
on to our first topic from the viewers today. This one comes from Chris Ewan. Do video game stories have to be patterned after the hero's journey? There are other long-standing narrative archetypes out there: the Greek tragedy, the comedy, the careful what you wish for story, the fable, and so on. But maybe these story types, by their very nature, can only be pulled off, or can only be off to the side of the protagonist's experience in a game, since they
Yeah.
don't copy the main character must achieve a task structure at the heart of so many games. Or
Mm.
maybe I'm thinking about this the wrong way. Maybe the protagonist of a video game story isn't always the player character. What do you think?
That's actually, those are very good points. When you look at Greek tragedy, comedy, and fable, and kind of the be careful what you wish for is a little bit of the double-edged sword of like German folklore, but those don't really. I don't want to say they don't work in video games. The only way those kinds of things can work in video games is through a game that's sort of like Heavy Rain or something like that, like an action movie. Basically, you're not really playing a game, because the hero's journey, I mean, there's a clear reason why most games follow the hero's journey. Like, it is patterned, it's a journey. And you're the hero. I mean, I don't know, that's just the way that games have always kind of gone. And a tragedy or a comedy, specifically a comedy, it doesn't. What would you be doing in the game? Are you like, what are you doing? Where are you going? What are you trying to do here? Some of the story elements can have elements of a Greek tragedy. I even think a game like Hellblade has some elements that are unusual, right, in
Mm-hmm.
video game. But when you look at the actual what is happening, it is a hero's journey, and it's really hard to get around that. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I have some thoughts on this. First, I want to shout out to Cody Leduc, who gave us a super chat here. Says, really love your
Ooh,
content, and this was one of the channels that helped me decide to start learning Japanese in college this semester. Keep it up.
sick.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Japanese is hard language. I wish you best of luck in learning that language.
Great.
Okay,
Luck, man.
so I think that in the typical sense, at least for what you see in a lot of stories, that you're on track. But what I actually think works really really well for video games are mysteries.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Games where it's about like what happened here, and
Yeah,
it's
because in that sense,
investigative.
the objective is less clear.
Yeah, it's very like the
No,
player character is investigating something. It's not necessarily like the mystery and the intrigue is about what happened, not about like the character's growth necessarily.
it's
Not
true. Yeah, the journey is almost
yeah,
irrelevant.
not it's a lot more plot
That's a good point.
centered than character centered, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that's not to say that a mystery can't have good character development or anything like that. But I think about games that I've played recently, like Night in the Woods. an indie game that I really, really enjoyed, and that was kind of all about like figuring out like what is going on in this town, right? And they explored the character herself really, really well. You got a lot of insight into how she thinks and her relationship with her friends in high school and how that's changed into her moving into an adult, like a real growing pains into becoming an adult, and a terrible economy and all kinds of things like that that strengthen the character. But like at the center, what you're doing when you're playing Night in the Woods is sort of investigating some strange things that are going on in the town. Kentucky Route Zero is another one where it's like, what on earth is going on here, right? Even you with playing with Breezy the Nancy Drew games, right? Like, those are definitely not hero's journey stories.
They aren't at all, actually. Yeah,
but still very interactive and a lot of fun. I think that a lot of point and click adventure games sort of like fit into this category, right? So I think that in any game where you're doing lots of investigating and where the plot is really centered on trying to like figure out what's happened here really work well for video games, and don't have to include the hero's journey or hero of a thousand faces kind of structure to it at all.
That's absolutely true. Some people are bringing up some things that I'm going to explain maybe a little bit why. Like, some people are saying Final Fantasy 15 is a tragedy. In many ways it is, right? But Final Fantasy 15 is straight up a hero's journey, almost to a T, almost to a perfect T, with the progression, with the savants, with the even with the deities, and with the thing after thing, with the building up towards he's working to achieve this thing that he knew about from the beginning, but he couldn't quite live up to it until like he was a prince who was learning to become a king. Like, this is classic hero's journey stuff. And so the fact that it is, it's also a tragic story, doesn't necessarily mean, especially gameplay wise, and especially for what the game really is, it's not a tragedy in terms of storytelling necessarily. It fits more of the hero's journey archetype.
Yeah, I actually agree with that.
And that includes Crisis Core and a lot of the other things that some people have mentioned as well.
Yeah, so there's a difference between just a general tragedy and then when we refer to something like Greek tragedy, which fit a different kind of structure. And hero's journey could probably be applied to some of those as well. But in essence, like, I think at the heart of Chris Ewan's question here is, can a story that does not fit within the hero's journey work in video games? And well, my answer to that is
mysteries is a great answer.
Mysteries.
That's probably the best, most fun genre.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I freaking love it.
No,
what else did I play recently? There was that game. It was a point and click Japanese game about like a high school where the kids get locked in and they have to find out like who the murderer is, and they hold trials. What is that? Danganronpa.
Danganronpa. Yeah. Yeah.
That's another one that I played fairly recently that kind of fits into that.
Definitely not a hero's journey.
No, not a hero's journey at all. All right.
Not at all. And then people say Nier Automata. That's actually maybe a decent point. But I don't know enough about the story necessarily. I haven't really played the full. What do you think about that?
I think an argument could be made for that.
Yeah.
I think an argument can be made for that for sure.
I'd say that if there's a clear goal from the beginning that the hero is striving to attain and can't for whatever reason, and anyways, read Joseph Campbell's work and Carl Jung and all these people. There's a lot that kind of works towards that just because you get to the end and then your friend dies and it's tragic, that it doesn't make it a tragedy, because I think the hero's journey is typified or maybe exemplified by the word transcendence, right? And if the ending is transcendence, if the main character transcends whatever was wrought before him, I don't think it can be considered a tragedy. But if the tragedy is too great and transcendence is no longer possible, then it kind of crushes the hero's journey because you can't get to the end of it. Whereas in Final Fantasy 15, transcendence is definitely a huge theme towards the end. It's not a tragedy.
Yeah.
That's all. But yeah, good answer, Mike. That was good. I wouldn't have thought of mysteries, even though I've freaking played every Nancy Drew ever made.
Nancy Drew, baby.
And Professor Layton. Those
Oh,
games are
what's
killer.
that other game? It's called The Room, I think. It's not like a mobile
Yeah,
game.
I've played The Room. I've played all three of them actually. Really, really well done.
Yeah.
Phone
I've
games.
heard they have pretty good stories too, right? And it's like really
Yeah, for what
mystery
you know
driven.
of them, they're good, but they don't give you much. And what you learn of the stories through playing The Room is like creepy, creepy stuff. Like you learn about this person at the very end. Well, maybe I shouldn't spoil it. It's scary, and it makes you think. Wait, what happened to this person? And you realize that holy crap! But it's not very explicit in its storytelling.
Okay, we
Ooh,
got Jakob Bean here. Jakob
Jakob,
Bean, what's up, man? He
what
gave
up,
us
dude?
a $10 donation here, super chat. Thank you very much. Says Toe Jam and Earl has the best hero journey storytelling. You're right on as usual.
Classic.
Toe
I
Jam
tell
and
you what,
Earl's
Jakob
Beasley.
has killer observations.
He has a really great taste in games. He honestly
He actually
does.
does.
It's one of the most unique I've ever seen. Yeah, if anyone wants some good suggestions for some quirky, really cool, unique games, hit up Jakob Bean. He'll give you some great suggestions. Stuff maybe you've never
Yeah.
heard of before. Okay. Let's move on to our last topic for the day.
All
This one
right.
comes from Eric at Phoenix Edge. Shout out to Phoenix Edge Podcast.
Ooh,
He's also known as Velhart around here.
nice.
To further expand on Kaysen's video this week, what games or movies do you think had a great plot that worked with similar tropes to world saving, but it was a much smaller scale situation and not world saving? So now we're switching back to what stories do include hero's journey, but don't include save the world plot.
Saving
Right?
the entire world. Yeah.
What stories do you appreciate that focus on this type of trope, but were still led through the hero's journey? I think of Spider-Man Homecoming, and what I appreciated about that movie was it wasn't that Spider-Man had to save the world from a villain. He was just being his neighborhood-friendly persona and stopping the villain from stealing supplies from S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, you're talking about the new. I was like, what the? You're talking about the new Spider-Man. Okay,
Yeah,
I have
Spider-Man
not
Homecoming, the
actually seen
latest
it.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are a few that I came up with that I think fit this really well. I can kind of list them, and some of them are kind of obvious. But so Journey, not about saving the world, but has very much that like epic feel to it, and very much
Yeah.
like a maybe not exactly hero's journey, but at least that kind of structure
It's
to the
missing some
characters.
parts, but overall, yeah.
It's very abstract, and
Yeah.
the way that it tells story is very much visual, but I think it could still be included as that type of story,
Yeah.
but not a and save the world thing. Shadow of the Colossus is definitely one for me, but it's sort of maybe that one could even be classified as tragedy in a sense, right? Story world defeats
It
the
depends on what happens
character.
afterwards because they don't really tell
Yeah,
you.
depends on how you interpret the ending, I guess.
Yeah.
But definitely not a save the world plot.
Hmm.
Now here's another one: the Tomb Raider reboot games, and Uncharted kind of fits into this too, right? They're out there searching for artifacts and things of that nature, not necessarily an end the world situation, but at least in the Uncharted games and in the first Tomb Raider reboot, lots of character growth there that fits very well into hero's journey sort of tropes. And then Hellblade, Senua Sacrifice is the last example I came up with. That is just like classic hero's journey, but
Yeah.
not at all related to Save the World plot. That's probably the best example of all these that I can think of. If you
Yeah.
have not played Hellblade, freaking play that game. It's
I
awesome.
actually think you save the least amount of people in that game relative to any other game in terms of.
Oh, that's actually a good point. I don't think you save any people in that
Well,
game.
yourself, right? That's like.
Yeah,
Anyways, well,
that's about
okay.
it.
So, yeah, I think that's great. Actually, I thought of a pretty interesting example. I hope you guys don't hate me for it, but the movie Taken. I would not consider like a great plot, even though that's what this question is asking, a great plot. But part of what made that movie good, I won't say so good, but good and powerful, is the fact that this is one dude, his daughter gets taken, right? And he goes through so much just to get her, and he actually does not like he there are situations where he possibly maybe could have actually helped save somebody else's child who was in that same situation. And you don't really think about that in the film. In fact, he uses somebody's child against them at a part of the kind of in the middle of the film, and he's all he freaking cares about is getting his family back. Like that is it. And I'm spoiling the ending for you because this isn't, obviously I don't think it's surprising what happens at the end, but he saves his daughter. Okay. So congrats to Liam Neeson for that. But he goes through this whole thing all across the world, right? And he could very easily have uncovered some secret plot to kidnap all the girls of the world and kind of foiled it, or really taken down an entire organization or something like that. That was like, oh, we're trafficking all over. But no, he just goes to the one place where his daughter is, and he's like, boom, kill you, get my daughter back. The end of the movie, right? And that actually, it's more powerful than if they were trying to make him seem like James Bond, who is gonna, take down this satellite that was up in outer space, and that was going to destroy the world. It was going to kidnap everyone's daughters. It was just his daughter, and keeping it centered on the emotional connection between one father and one daughter. It makes, because people have a really hard time when it comes to I don't know. This is how these stories from these African. How do you even get them? I don't even know what I'm saying here. So there are people who are like, hey, donate money and you'll help this one kid in Africa, right? This one kid. Donate like $1
nonprofit organizations.
Yeah, the nonprofits. So they're like, if you donate $1 a week to help this one kid, $4 a month, then you can help Jonathan here have a great life. And tons of people end up donating because it's one person. They can see him. They feel that they can identify with him. They saw him smile. They saw him cry, and they're going to help him out, right? But as soon as you add even one more person, if you say, help Jonathan and his little sister here, all of a sudden people are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They actually will donate less money to help two people than they would have just to help one person, even though that money was spread around and helped all the kids. That kid was just the poster child. And so then you that compounds, right? So then you say, hey, there's 1 million people being murdered in Myanmar, in Burma right now. And people are like, or in like Yemen. What? Like, okay, that's not, I don't care. People don't care because 1 million, you can't even, there is no connection between me and 1 million people. I can't relate to that big of a number. I can't even imagine that many people around me. How many miles back would that go? Like, I don't even know. How many people is this? I really can't identify with that. But if you show me one person, like, boom, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a brother, like I can identify with that number of people. And so when it comes, and this is one of the big problems I probably should have mentioned in the video, but the biggest problem with the Save the World plotline is it becomes so disconnected. If one person is saving one other person, it's so much more emotional and impactful and relatable. Whereas when Superman reverses the spin of Earth and saves everyone, and it's like, great. He literally, you should be feeling the way you feel when Liam Neeson saves his daughter times 6 billion. You should be feeling that when Superman saves all of Earth, but you don't. You actually don't feel anything because that's way too big a scale, and your mind just kind of turns off at that point. But when Superman swoops in and saves one little girl from the clutches of evil in one scene of that film, same movie, boom, it's like, oh, Superman, such a good hero. Oh, he did good work, man. Oh, you saved that one person. So I can't. There's a word for that, by the way. The something effect, where you care more about one person than 1 million people. It's a problem with humans, but it came about because of our tribal circumstances for like 200,000 years. Like, we never were around more than a few hundred people ever at any given time until just like 10,000 years ago. So it's really hard for people to really identify with that big of a number. So anyways, Taken would be my example for that.
A couple things about you said that I want to touch on, but first, another super chat.
Yakuza. There you go. Somebody in the comments saying Yakuza is a good example. Absolutely.
That's a good one for sure.
Yeah.
Super chat from Broken Ego. This is my brother Kenny. Says, from your bro, keep it up, guys. Thank you for the super chat, man. Appreciate it.
What's up, Kenny?
Thanks. Thanks for the support. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Okay, so about the point you made where when you can attach a face, a single person to who
One
you're
single.
saving, having it
Yeah.
more, powerful or whatever. Kind of two things that I wanted to kind of branch off with there. First of all, I watched a Vsauce video once, and the point of I can't remember exactly like what the video's main topic was about, but he was talking about how the numbers on YouTube can get so huge and there's millions of people watching or thousands of people watching or whatever. But that like
Yeah.
basically we've figured out that at any one time a human being can really only like keep solid like any sort of like less than like an acquaintance level or just surface level relationship with someone with only about 200 people in your lifetime.
Yeah.
Like that's
I
about it.
remember. Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell talks about that actually.
And it's a big reason why like the military is structured the way it
Yep.
is, where you don't ever have a command of like a huge number of people, more than about
Yeah,
200
they're
people.
separated into
Mm-hmm.
platoons and squads.
Because
Yeah.
you can't like maintain and like really understand on any deep level more people than that at once. A
Yeah.
human brain's not capable of handling that, right?
Which is about how big
So
most tribes were and are.
yeah, and so that's why when you say you saved the entire world or you saved millions of people, we just can't really comprehend that number. We can't see
Yeah.
that many faces or even have the potential to have a personal relationship with that many people. So
Right.
that's why it's so easy for us to sweep aside a headline like 100,000 people dead in whatever tragic natural disaster, because it's like I can't put a face to that. You can't be emotionally attached to it. Versus, like you're saying, sort of maybe even the exploitative measures used to direct people to vote for certain propositions or to support their organization
Oh
because
yeah.
they put a face there. The
Yep.
children see this child.
Think
like,
of the children. Will somebody think of the children?
Right,
Yeah.
because that gets us emotional. Like when
Yep.
we see a face attach a personality, we know that with on a smaller scale like that, like one or just a few kids, we could develop a relationship with those kids. Like me sending money helping those kids means something to me. And I also thought about how it was interesting how in Final Fantasy VII, the entire plot sort of revolves around saving the planet, but they gave the planet almost its own personality. They made it almost singular, even though all
Huh.
the souls of people return to the planet, right? But the planet's spirit, the planet's life force, the planet's voice is what Aerith listens to, right? She gets down and she's listening to the voice of the planet, and they talk about the planet almost as a singular entity, and how that,
Yeah,
at
that's
least for
true.
me, made saving the planet more, I guess, personal than in the
Huh.
general sense of saving the world that you see in
That's
a lot of
interesting. Yeah.
stories like that. Anyways, yeah, though on a general scale, I think that usually it is more personal and impactful in a story when you attach a personal relationship. And I think this is why, like Chris Nolan in Interstellar, right? Rather than making the movie
Yeah.
strictly about they're out in space and they're exploring the black hole and the wormhole and they're doing what they're doing in space to save the world back here, he had a sort of the father-daughter relationship and the
Yeah.
need to like get back to her, trying to kind of tie that emotional connection in there. As much as I think that wasn't executed perfectly, I can see that as being the primary reason why that plot thread is in there in the first place, is
Yeah.
because for the most part, it's a lot harder for the audience to personally attach to the idea of saving everyone on the planet versus saving a daughter. Everyone can relate to that. Like, have a family member, close family member, whether that is your own child or you have a relationship with your parents, so you know what a parental and a child, a paternal or maternal relationship is. No matter who
Yeah.
you are, you've experienced that, so it's relatable, right?
You know
So
the hardest thing about that is that if you're going to make a film or tell a story, with a relatable character as the subject of maybe, what needs to be saved, I guess. You need to spend some time developing that character, and I think that's a little too much to ask for a lot of um, game developers or a lot of film directors, writers. Uh, it's easier to just go with the save the world route. Everyone's in danger, as opposed to really making sure your people care about one character enough to make sure that that one character is worth saving.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just harder to do.
Yeah, it definitely is. Because like you said, I mean, we understand personal one-on-one relationships way better than a relationship to a huge group.
Oh yeah.
It's not the same. Emotionally, it's not the same for us. So stories that focus on that one relationship between a one-on-one thing or a small band of brothers or friends or whatever it is. I think something on the size of, say, a Final Fantasy party, right? A party of like 6 to 12 people. That's about as big as you can get before you start to lose, I think, some of that sense of like real personal connection to the people.
Yeah, yeah.
So, anyways, there's probably a lot of good examples in film. Maybe not as many in video games, but
yeah,
there's still some.
it's hard because you always have the epic, the big boss, right?
Yeah.
If the big boss is, if you're like level 99 and you're trying to beat the big boss and you're clearly the most powerful thing you will ever encounter in the game, then the boss is supposedly supposed to be more powerful than you. And so he's unbelievably powerful. Of course he's going to take over the world. You have somebody that freaking powerful, yeah, they're going to try and take over the world. So, all right. Like Ganon or, any of the villains. It's just like they are made so powerful by the game in order for your encounter with them to be meaningful, that yeah, they can just take over the world easily.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's it, people. That's it for this week's questions. It's been a good podcast. Appreciate you guys watching it. Appreciate all the support from the people who donated super chat today. Thank you very much. Let's see. My video is going to be, my next video is scheduled for this Monday. Just to update you guys on where I'm at with Vagrant Story, right? I did actually a lot of writing for the retrospective review on Vagrant Story today. I made a lot of progress. However, I have kind of a short week this week because I'm going to be out of town Saturday and Sunday. So that might not be the video that comes out this week. But since we've been discussing Final Fantasy VII a bit today, with Uematsu's his comments about the remake was supposed to come out this year or whatever. There's an idea that I was kind of discussing with Heon on Discord last night about the spirit, like when you're adapting something to, if it's a video game to a film or a novel to a film or whatever, like how do you maintain the spirit of the thing, even though the limitations of the other media are going to require you to make some changes to it or whatever. Would you guys have any interest in me talking about that topic with Final Fantasy VII? Because I know a lot of people are tired of Final Fantasy topics on the podcast and complain a little bit and say, talk about something else. Because I have other ideas too. There are other videos I could do. So let me know in the comments section if you just want me to not talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake until we actually know something about it.
I think the process of extracting spirits in general would be a pretty sweet video.
I am going to make a video
just generally
on this topic about the Lord of the Rings trilogy eventually.
Ooh.
So maintaining the spirit of the books and the films and the success or lack of that they've had with that. Peter Jackson has had with that in his 6 attempts at it, right? But
you do so well in the first 3, and then you just screw it up in the last 3. I just don't get it.
Anyways, let me know in the comments if you have no interest in that, because there's part of me that goes like, talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake is kind of a tired thing at this point, and I don't know how much
until
really
there's
want me to speculate on it, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the realm of speculation. That's not what this would be. It would be about how do you maintain the spirit of the thing, and do I think they can? I guess that's speculation. But My point is, if you don't want me to talk about it, I won't. So just let me know so I can decide on something
right.
else to do for Monday instead. Okay? Thank you for watching. You guys are beasts. We'll see you again next week. Have a great week and weekend. Peace out.
Peace.